All right, Nicky Sticky, not so sicky, I guess. It's good to have you on the podcast. This is fill in the blank, but we're just gonna talk about what it's like to be, I guess,
Okay.
multicultural.
Yeah.
Tell me your experience of growing up with a mom who's white and a dad who's black.
Um, it's I'd have to say it's a unique experience. It puts me in a situation, although it's a whole lot more common now than it was, say 30, 40 years ago. Um, but it gives me a unique position and an understanding of more than one culture. Because I get to see both sides from the inside. It's not like I'm only black and I don't understand what it means to be white, and I'm not only white and don't really understand what it means to be black. Puts me in the middle. Um, Sometimes it's see you get forced to pick one side or another. Like sometimes some people feel like you can't be both at the same time. Um, that's really what I would rather. Just I'm not one or the other. I'm both.
Do you feel like
It's
people focus too much on that? Like they ask you the question, like, "You're black, right?" No, they're like, "No, I'm half white, half black. I'm a mixed race."
Yeah, and it's that's true, but it's also less about race and more about culture because it's the culture is what's different. It's not necessarily the color of your skin that makes you different. It's how things within the culture are structured. How family is different. Like
Mm-hmm.
growing up in a family that has a certain set of rules and different expectations. It aligns more culturally than it does necessarily just with
So, what about
being
your
a
culture
color.
between both your parents is different?
Um, I'd say from my father's side is definitely a lot more extended family oriented. Like I'm familiar with cousins outside of my first cousins, so like second cousins, third cousins, my dad's cousins. Um, a better understanding of going back two generations and understanding a family tree, um, and being more in tune with your family. Where on my mom's side, I know who my first cousins are, and we're all real tight. Mostly because we all happen to be local. We're all within 20 miles of each other. Most of us less than that, so it's easy to stay tight. But then outside of the first generation, that the people that's right there, you don't really know too much about anything else. Whereas the black side, especially Sussex County, because 90% of black people in Sussex County and Worcester County are related anyway. You got a better idea of how the families tie in.
It's kind of crazy to think how, like you were saying, that you know about your other cousins, like your second cousin, your third cousin on the black side of your family. When
Mm-hmm.
you think about that, do you think black people are more kind of open to finding out who their ancestry roots are and where it comes from, like staying kind of connected with the whole family? Because when you look at, not to be racist or anything, but when you look at a black family get together and a white family get together, it is two completely different
It
things.
is definitely.
It's usually with the white side. It's like, I'm used to having small gatherings, not too
Mm.
many people, like just kind
A
of immediate
family,
family
yeah.
and grandparents, and
A
then
white family reunion can fit in a house.
yeah, most and the black family reunion has to go
Yeah, you
outside.
got to
Yeah.
go rent. You got to go rent a fire department, a
Oh
fire
God.
hall or something. Yeah.
Now, do you say that because of the types of food you guys cook?
Well, that happens too. A, a majority, we've got a couple of family reunions. Like there's a Clark and Welburn family reunion where it's they have to rent something out like that because it's just the sheer amount of people that come. You need a kitchen where family goes and cooks, and like you need a commercial kitchen to be able to feed all the people that come to it. Um, I don't have I don't have a Weber family reunion that's like that.
It kind of sucks that, like, even like sitting here talking to you and I'm as comfortable as can be, I still feel like the stigma of like you don't really want to mention race. You know what I mean? Like the kind of like the tension.
Yeah.
Just
Hmm.
because, I mean, it is such a sensitive subject, first
It
of all.
is.
But it's like, why do we have to think of certain foods and have certain stereotypes to certain things? Like, if you eat a certain food, that's stereotypical
Right.
black person, or if you eat a certain food, stereotypical white person, like white girls in Starbucks, and then black
Yeah.
people and fried chicken. I'm like, I
Yeah.
enjoy fried chicken whenever. So it's like, what I want to ask you is, what do you think about that? Do you think there should even be that stereotype? Do you think it ever could be eliminated?
Um, I don't think it'll ever be eliminated. I mean, because it's more than it's it might feel like it's race, but it's also it's a part of your culture. The reason fried chicken is mentioned is so associated with black people is because fried chicken is culturally, something that's been ingrained in the development of the African American society. Like it's fried chicken from the South like that. It's a part of who African Americans are. So then to come back and and not associate it with that, it's kind of taken away from your roots. And I think that's kind of important in society as it is. There's like a progression where you kind of melt everything down into one, and we're all one, and which is true. But at the same time, you lose an identity of who you are if you don't really know where you're coming from. And if fried chicken is where you come from, then that's where you come from. If
I mean, I don't come from fried chicken, but I enjoy fried chicken for sure.
Yeah.
And especially like watermelon or something. Like I enjoy sushi. Does that mean I have to be Asian to have sushi? And we think just when we say mixed race, we think it means you're half black or something. No, I mean there's multiple definitions for mixed race, being part Native American, being part Latino. It actually wasn't until the year 2000 that the census, where it has a little checkbox where you can check something else, went from white, had other options you could choose from. Isn't that ridiculous?
Well, I remember that because I was born in '93. So like, and even in 2000, like like the United States government census might have switched over, but it's not like standardized testing in school. Like I always remember having to pick. You get the box and it's like white or black, and I gotta ask somebody. I'm like, which one am I supposed to check? Because I'm both.
And they just give you the answer. Which one do you feel?
Yeah, which one do you associate? I mean, it's usually which one do you identify with the most, and
you identify with
just
both.
Pick. Yeah, you just gotta pick.
That's got to be a terrible thing to answer. Like, kind of question back when someone goes, "Which do you identify the most?" It's like I identify as both. I'm not losing either my roots. It's like if it feels like you're probably choosing a side in a way.
Yeah. It definitely, just growing up, you definitely feel like you got to choose a side, especially when people that are interracial or multicultural or whatever word you want to use grow up, but don't necessarily grow up in an environment that is multicultural. Like like I might have my family's like it might be multicultural, but going to a school, I mean, most of the schools that I went to, I was the blackest kid in the school besides like 3 or 4 other people. So it's like, it's not like I grew up where there's a lot of Asians and a lot of Native Americans or Latinos. It's not been, because I didn't go to the public school.
You went to a private school?
Yeah, I went to private schools.
I was going to ask you the question of, how in high school there's like the black table, the white table, the rednecks, and all those like certain social groups that stick together. I was like, how would you feel walking in there not knowing? Would you feel like you wouldn't know where to sit, like which side, or you wouldn't be accepted with a certain side? Because I've seen not racism from whites to mixed people, but blacks to mixed people.
Yeah,
it's happens.
Definitely.
They said you're not true, and it's like something like that, like you're not true blood. It's like, I'm pretty sure we all come from Africa, as much as people like to shout that out. But it's like, we're all people, man. You can't really look at it like that. And like what you're saying about having different experiences with multicultural, like just kind of growing up with 2 separate parents that are like just different races, and you're talking about people that don't have like have a certain culture in their house.
Right.
That's 100% if one of the parents is of a certain ethnicity and they don't have the other parent there with them, so it's just them supporting you. They're gonna grow up their style of how they were raised and how they. So you're gonna absorb more of that culture than if you absorbed the culture of
100%.
your other parent.
Yeah.
And do you think I think that's kind of a cool thing, because at the same time it's like, yeah, you don't know who to identify as, but at the same time you have both sides of a spectrum. You have something that someone else like me, who is just white or something, that doesn't have. And a lot of people don't look at that. And it wasn't until like 1929 when, first of all, multiracial marriages even became legal.
Yeah, my grandparents are from Delaware, and when they had to go to New York to get married because it was illegal in Delaware.
It's called Lovings versus Education or something like that.
Yeah, that was a Virginia case. I think there's even a movie about it now, but Yeah, the Lovings family was a white and black interracial, and it was illegal in Virginia. So they left, or they may have gotten married there anyway, and then they ended up getting arrested. And then that's how the whole Lovings versus the state case or whatever it's called came about.
It's like mycination, I think, is the what the white supremacist term is. It's where like you're mixing with, you know, because a lot of people a lot of people back then at least didn't believe. It's a lot more common today. You see that happen
Yeah.
anywhere. People are starting to realize you find love somewhere, you're gonna, you know, stick it where the hole fits. You're gonna fill in the blank. But you know, when you look at that and you look at these people that were getting sued saying that their marriage or their love was unconstitutional and they were trying to get it put into the Constitution, saying it turns out it was legal a long time ago. Because actually in the Constitution they found out the thing like there's like a quote stating that it's okay to basically be in a mixed relationship, and it's like there's no law against it. They were trying to prove that it was in the Constitution that they couldn't have done that, and that's when they ended up winning the case.
Yeah.
And I just think that, like, first of all, to be put through that, especially when you're just trying to make a life for yourself and be happy, and then it's like having that stigma, and then they have to go, like your grandparents, explain that, traveling to a whole nother place to get married. You know how ridiculous that sounds now?
Yeah.
But back then, that was like, what? They did that? Wow, those people are terrible. It's like, why? They're trying to find love. Why are we so closed off to love in a way?
Yeah. Yeah, that is. I mean, it's crazy to think about. I mean, it's not that far back. My grandfather, is in his early 80s. So I mean, we're only talking like 60 years ago that it was illegal in Delaware to be interracially married. And my dad was the first. His first grade class was the very first integrated. Was the year they started integration where there wasn't a black school and a white school anymore. His first grade year was the first time white kids and black kids went to the same classroom together.
That's a drastic change because, I mean, when I left high school, now all the kids are assigned tablets instead of textbooks. I'm like, if I went back, I'd be like, I feel like I'm in a spaceship or something. And it's crazy to think that, like, he, you know, he's someone I would like to talk to about, like, just growing up through that whole change. I mean, there was a point in our history where we're so open and so sensitive now, but we gotten too sensitive. But there was a point in our history where there was two separate water fountains, white or black. Now I ask you the question, how would you decide? Are you just going to go thirsty?
I probably wouldn't have a choice. I'd probably be forced to drink from the black fountain. Because even back then, people that were mixed were usually, if you weren't all white, then you're not white. You're something else. And then you'd have to go to the other fountain. I mean, just like Native Americans, they weren't really allowed to drink from the white fountain, so neither were blacks or anyone that was a little bit black. I mean, of course, there were some exceptions where, you know, like a slave master might end up having a kid and he raised it as his own, and you know they may have lived in as if they were 100% white.
Dealing with the education system as well. When you're learning about it in school, do you feel like that, like you were saying, like there should be more kind of put on about education and like at least taught a little bit, educated more? Like, you know, when you're learning all this history about everything, do you ever feel upset? Really, like you're torn like to one side, or feel a type of stigma where you like? Because I remember I took a Black American history class, and I just took an intro of it, and I was the only white guy in there.
Yeah.
And I only did that because I was the only class left. But I was like, do I want to be the only white guy? And this is at University of Maryland, so I'm like, I'm out there, like,
yeah.
And it's like I'm in there as white as can be, like SpongeBob on the first day of boating school. And it's like they're all looking at me, and as we're reading the syllabus and it's all white guilt stuff, it's like I felt the stigma of all of them wanting to beat me up when I left. And it was a sense of them, like, I was, like, not mad because, I mean, like, they have, I guess, a right to. But how far do you want to abuse your power of thinking that, you know, just because we made mistakes back in history that we can still use that today? It's like holding a grudge. And that's what Martin Luther King believed, you know, when he was talking about, like, fight it with love, not violence, you know. Forget everything that's happened through history. It's time to make changes. If we move forward and progress as a society, we're all going to work together and realize in the end that we're all people. We're all these creatures that grew up and evolved, or whatever you want to believe, that were put on this earth to have our own reason and not be so filled with hate.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that in early early educational system, like I guess maybe not necessarily as early as elementary, but middle school and high school, when you're educating then, looking back now, um, I feel like it may have been a little biased. Um, I guess what it really comes down to is not wanting things to be swept under the rug and pretending like it didn't happen when it did.
Yeah.
You definitely don't want classes where it feels like there's a call to arms. That's definitely not a good
So you
situation.
don't want a class that's totally ignoring the fact that it
Right.
even happened.
You don't, but you don't want, yeah, because you don't want a generation or people to feel like you're trying to pretend like it didn't happen or start pointing fingers. And honestly, I feel like of all the people, it's the Native Americans that got the short end of the stick. There's plenty of things within American history that happened that are not taught in the education system when it's a reality of what happened and it should. And it's not.
There's so many factors when it comes to like Christopher Columbus. I
Yeah.
mean, we patronize him as the guy that found America and everything, and then we look and he's bashing babies against rocks and
Yeah,
stuff. Like
it's
he's
it's
treating people
not.
like shit, and it's like we're not even focused on the true. Like, first of all, what's the truth? The history's written by the winner, so they're gonna
Yeah.
glorify themselves as much as possible.
Sure.
And when it comes to history and slaves and all that type of stuff, it's like that happened in our past. It's something that we got to move forward on. We can't really hold the stigma, because if we keep doing that, we're just repeating the same process.
Mm-hmm.
And that works for all races, not just whites against blacks. That doesn't just work for blacks against whites. There's Asians, there's mixed people that are Asian and black. Like,
Yeah.
there should be, I mean, I'm glad that on the census you're able to check the correct box you feel.
Yeah.
But having stuff so opinionated, and even there's stuff in society today, do you ever feel like it's not right? Like, there are kind of years in the past, like especially if you go somewhere that's been less open, like Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to them, but that's been less open to they were the last state to accept multiracial couples and
Mm-hmm.
everything like that. And it's like, are there certain things that you notice in society today that kind of strike you in a certain way when it comes to that?
I'd say it's probably less about legal rules and legislation. I think most things surrounding that have kind of been fixed a little bit more often than not. There's less of that, and it's more about just how emotions and things surrounding it are feeling. It's more about do all sides feel like things are equal at this point, or do people still feel like things are one-sided or two-sided, or some people are or some cultures or races still getting treated unfairly and maybe not having what they need to succeed, or some getting a boost. I'd say it's probably more about that than it is just legislation.
Like, when it comes to, if I got pulled over right now, like at night or something, if I got pulled over in the middle of the night,
Mm-hmm.
and the cop gets out, you feel like he's gonna give me an easier time than if he was looking at you, because that would be someone who is of like black skin would say that would be like a thing for them to get out of the car, get searched and things like that. Do you think that
Yeah.
just depends on the officer, or do you think that's just the stigma of what races looked like?
I think it probably is 100% the office, just the type of officer. I don't think I've ever had an issue being pulled over, but that's not to say that I won't come across one where it is an issue. Because either they've had a bad experience, or I usually don't dress like I'm someone to be intimidated by. So I think that probably the way you present yourself has a lot to do with it. It's less about the color of your skin and just how you present yourself.
Now, I have an example of a situation that actually happened to me today when I was at the dollar store. A woman, white woman, old white woman, was the cashier, and then this lady comes up. I mean, blonde, like probably just got out of Starbucks,
Mm-hmm.
and she was like a mom, and she was like rushing and getting like 40 million things on the thing, and the girl's stacking bowls, not at the register.
Mm-hmm.
She's just stacking them off to the side, and the lady just gets up there and goes, excuse me, you work here? I'm ready to check out. Can you get over here, please? I need to go. And like, I was like, all right, well, she's in a hurry, but there's no need to be like that. But she was a jerk.
Yeah.
And it was like, if that woman, that was the old woman, was
Mm-hmm.
black, that would not happen. there'd be a whole different scenario. You'd be like, "Excuse me," her whole attitude would change.
Yeah.
Now that's when it comes to racism on our own race, either black racism where it comes with black to black, but white to white, we treat each other like shit. Everyone treats everyone like shit. It's not against a certain race. I think that really opened up my eyes today, which really wanted me to get on this kind of topic.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, you want to talk about racial injustice. That's racial injustice. We're racist to each other. We can't even accept each other. And yeah, we might be in a hurry, but what's the right to treat somebody like shit? And especially when you work in a business and you have to kind of bite your tongue in a way. It's like, I saw that and I literally told her, I was like, I hope you have a nice day. I'm sorry that happened to you. And she was like, thank you. And I was like, most people see me at the age of 20 acting like that. But no, I was like, I'm not in that much of a hurry to make someone's day feel like shit. Because you don't know if they just need that hug or something, or they need that smile or have a good day just to get in through the day.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely, the world's full of people who don't know how to treat others, and it doesn't always boil down to, more often than not, it doesn't boil down to an issue of race. It's just not knowing how to treat other people properly.
So if I had to ask you, what's your favorite white culture thing and what's your favorite black culture thing?
Boy, that'd be tough.
Because I think I enjoy more black culture than white culture. I like learning. I don't like the fact that in history all we're taught is that George Washington Carver invented peanut butter.
Yeah.
And all this, like, the stupid stuff, really. There's actually a good thing on Netflix. I suggest people to go look it up, but it's called Black History Month, which really I've been watching the crap ton of because it's just funny. It's Kevin Hart, too, so it's like he makes the historical facts fun.
Yeah.
And he's educating you on just famous black people through history. And it's like, that word, even saying that, like, I'm like, why do we have a certain word? I understand that it defines us, but it's like, we're all just people. When is it going to be the day where everything on the census, it just has a box that says people? It's like the picture with all the kids holding hands.
Yeah. Yeah. I gotta say, I'm probably not very optimistic that day will ever come. I guess I probably feel a little different about it because I like the fact that it's stereotypes can be a bad thing.
And
they can also be a good thing. It's if we were all, I like to say this a lot to someone, but like if everyone was perfect, we'd all be the same. It's the things that are flaws that make us so different. I'm not perfect at this. It's the fact that I'm not perfect at that makes me kind of who I am. And the fact is, stereotypes are kind of just a way of categorizing things, which if we didn't have the ability to categorize stuff, things would be a mess.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily that I have a problem with stereotypes. It's more like negative stereotypes are coming in with a presumption of things that it's going to be bad when it's not necessarily the case. Like just the fact I have dreadlocks, so 95% of the people that talk to me assume that I already smoke marijuana, which isn't the case. But I knew that coming in.
No one assumes you're a teacher. Like that's
you
don't see a teacher having dreads.
Yeah, so I mean that comes with the territory. I knew that when I signed up, when I got dreadlocks, that was going to be the case most of the time. But at the same time, it doesn't always have to be a bad thing. It can also be a good thing.
Now, do you wear dreads just because you like them, or do you wear dreads to, this is a giant leap here, or do you wear dreads to kind of get the stigma of people judging your skin? Do you think it's more of an attracting thing away from the question of being, because I know like some people that are mixed, they talk about how they hate asking, when people come up to them, what race are you, and what what's your ethnicity, or what are you, white or black? Like, do you wear that so people just kind of ignore the question? Because that more stigmatizes towards someone that is of like darker ethnicity,
right?
With dreads.
Yeah,
that's a cultural thing.
For me, it was more of I had always wanted dreadlocks. In middle school, I was a big Bob Marley fan, and so and I had gone through all the other hairstyles, and it's like that was like I wanted to do that because I felt like that was kind of be me. And then when got closer, I really didn't get it till after I graduated high school, so that's some time. But then it also was a part of, um, I wanted to feel like I could be who I wanted to be, but I also doesn't mean that I have to fall in someone else's, spectrum of what's politically correct. Like I can be an interracial kid with dreadlocks and still be, someone that you wouldn't expect. Like I didn't
You
want.
didn't want your hair or skin to define who
Yeah,
you are.
I wanted to be
you
able
to define who you are.
Yeah, if I've got, if it's not always, sometimes I kind of see it as a challenge that if people come to me already feeling like they know what's up, and then it turns out they really didn't know what's up at all, that's, to me, that was a win. That's almost, I mean, it's a part of who I am. People maybe thinking I'm one thing and turn out I'm not, that's not who I am.
See, that's when we say we got to judge a person by their character, not the color of their skin.
Yeah.
It's that whole thing. I mean, you gotta, when you hear all these things and all these racist remarks and all these stereotypes, and you're feeling like you don't know which way to kind of go, which way, if the white side pulls you more, the black side pulls you more, the Asian side pulls you more, whatever you are. And do you think it's crazy to believe that when celebrities and stuff promote that as like their reason why they're good at something, like Michael Jordan, being good at basketball, was that because he's black, or he just had amazing talent? But America looks at it, he's a giant black guy, so he's obviously going to be good at basketball. Same thing with Shaquille O'Neal. But then you look at someone like Tiger Woods that's half Asian and half black. Like, where does that fall in the line? A lot of times celebrities and famous people try and go with the stigma. They try and roll with the thing, like, this is why I'm good at this, is because I'm mixed. I'm better than you. I have a piece of me that's better than you. And it's where we talk about like glorifying something. It's like that's a little bit glorifying it too much, I think, when you start comparing yourselves. But that's a problem we all face, where we're comparing ourselves constantly.
Yeah. That definitely, a lot of that comes down to comparing yourself to someone else, and especially big name celebrities and things like that. I mean, that's just a marketing ploy, to drive sales, drive money. So it's really not that much different than marketing beautiful people for beauty products. If you go by billboards, it's, you don't see ugly people on billboards for Olay's skincare. It's someone that's beautiful, and that's just your...
Society has ridiculous standards.
Yeah.
It's just the fact, like, when it comes to how we gotta look and how all these things. I mean, Morgan Freeman, but that's the weird thing. Morgan Freeman's the exception. You know what I mean? He's a dark-skinned person with freckles all over his face. He does not give a shit. Like, he's the one that quotes for Black History Month. He doesn't believe in it. He goes, we don't think we should have a month. We're all people. That was his saying. That was his campaign for it. And, like, remember with Obama in 2010 when he took the census and he checked black, some people felt upset that he didn't check another ethnicity or something. They felt like he was just justifying himself as black. And that's people being a little bit too sensitive over something that doesn't really matter what you are. But it always just leads back to the fact, I mean, if you can be happy of what you are and like your different backgrounds and different histories. I mean, there's beautiful things on both sides. I think every culture has something that we all need to be cultured in a way. Yeah. Whether it's with Asian food, whether it's whatever type of food. Mostly food in my mind, just because there's so many things. Like I work with a Haitian housekeeper, and of course she speaks a different language sometimes, but she speaks English. It's like she has so much of her heritage, and she tries not to lose it. She keeps her dreads. She does, she doesn't dress a certain style or way that would fit in society standards. She wears certain charms and stuff that she brought back from her country, but she makes me Haitian food. And oh my God, it's the best thing in the world. That's my new favorite thing. If there's open up a Haitian restaurant down here, I'm going down there. Now, I'm not in any way black, so why do I enjoy Haitian food? Yeah. Well, because it's good food. When something's made right, when something's done right and done in the right terms, it's right.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
So, putting down onto the stigma of, first of all, race and everything, too. I don't want to focus too heavily on just race and all the things that are going on, but I think it's cool when you're open to influence on both sides, like being cultural, like you're saying. I mean, it's a little bit difficult to kind of focus on anything else. When society, like, what the news plays and what all these things kind of show the bad side of things without showing the inner light. Like, you always see, everyone always chalks up, there's always black kids getting shot on the television, there's all these people starting riots and stuff. And like, you don't see the good things that happen in this world. The news literally is intended to focus on bad things. That's what it is. That's what's going to get the story. That's how Nightcrawler, that movie with Jake Gyllenhaal, got started. Like, there's literally, that's what we're all looking for. We're all looking for, oh my God, this could happen. Oh my God, that could happen. Yeah. But do you feel that it's weird that when it comes to being open and together and looking at everyone the same, it only happens in a national tragedy?
Yeah. Yeah, the media is they make their money with widespread panic. That's how they get their money. I think, yeah, it is ironic that it takes something like a national tragedy for people to feel together, like 9/11.
Yeah, 9/11, for example. Like, a white supremacist would help a black person, because at that point he didn't look at race or color of skin. He looked at, we're all people are people. And there were people that probably wouldn't help others in a million years helping each other out in that whole scenario. But they all came together to target one race, though. Mm-hmm. Now, does it take that? Does it take like America or some place to focus so much on one thing to hate to come together, or does it take some giant impact to focus on, fixing it and rebuilding, kind of putting, like, let's say an alien ship was targeting here, and it was going to destroy it. Will we all come together to try and destroy the alien ship, like Independence Day? I don't think anybody was thinking about the color of your skin during Independence Day. Thank God that Will Smith was able to fly that freaking UFO in there and blow it up.
Yeah, it's I think things like that, tragedy, is kind of a temporary. It's just a band-aid, because it's, like, you've got family that you probably don't talk to or see, and then someone in your family dies, everybody meets up, and then first thing everyone says, like, man, it's a shame that we all got to meet under these circumstances, which you can meet outside of the circumstances. It just happens to be tragedy that brings people together. Yeah. It's temporary, and everyone goes back apart. So I think if there's ever a point where a country can unite different cultures or things like that can unite, it's a progressive thing. It's not something that's going to be, it's probably not going to happen within a span of 20 years. And honestly, a lot of it's probably going to be due to the fact that there's so much mixing of races and cultures that eventually people are going to start being together. It's all going to be one people whether they want to or not, because everyone's going to start looking the same and coming from things that are all familiar. There's a lot of rudimentary countries where, like tribal things, where there's not a whole lot of globalization. They're not mixing with each other. They're not mixing with other populations. So they've got a lot farther to go than someone like America, where we've already have a lot of mixing of cultures and things like that. So, like, it's only as time goes on, the mixing's just going to get more and more rather than further and further apart. Although sometimes there can definitely be polarizing things like politics or poverty, income levels, things like that. Like, that can be very polarizing. But
certain protests and
stuff. Yeah, but at the same time, I think it's more like the world is moving towards a point of people all being the same, rather than further from it. I think the world starts out as being separate, and then as technology moved, globalization and things mixing, it's probably getting more to a point far in the future where people will be a lot more alike than they care to realize or admit.
The rise of multicultural families and stuff like that has gone up since the past 20 years. It's more common now. It's not something that was looked at like how when the one couple were getting, tried for race mixing in a way. And there's so many different terms you could say for the name and everything. But, there are the occasion, like there's a documentary on Netflix about the KKK. It's a documentary, not explaining it, but getting people to join, basically. It's like that still exists out here. There are still people that are kind of living in what we would call the Stone Age and haven't progressed.
Yeah.
And that might be just from where they're from. That's also their environmental factors. A lot
Yeah.
of stuff, like, no one's born racist. That's not a thing. The one stigma I freaking hate is when you're in school and you look at a motivational poster or a come together poster. It's a white person, a black person. They always got to throw a black person in there.
Yeah.
There's always like 50 white kids and then one black guy.
Yeah.
And it's like, why do they have to put that in there? And it was the same thing if you ever seen the show Scrubs. They were talking about,
Yeah.
with the doctor poster. They only had him there because he was black. Like, why do we have to do it like that? Why can't we just have a poster that's has white people on it, has black people on it, has Asian people on it? I mean, and then you put them by themselves or with the same group of ethnicity, whatever you want to call it, Native Americans, then it's a racist poster because it only has those ethnicities. It's like, when are we going to think of stuff as like, it's just a poster, it's trying to get a point across, and it's not trying to piss anybody off. We're always stepping on somebody's toes. Whatever you say, whatever you do. Hell, this podcast, people are going to be like, oh, he doesn't know anything about race mixing. He doesn't know anything about what it loves. So like, first of all, I've dated someone who's mixed. It seems like that's more of the girls I'm attracted to. Mm-hmm. Shout out to any girls that are listening that are mixed. But it's like, I walk into Walmart, all the black chicks are looking at me like, damn. And I'm like, I don't know if it's my one person I work with who's black. He's like, I call him my black dad as like a joke. But, because he gives me so much wisdom. I'm trying to get on the podcast, but he's all like, I'm not into that, man. I'm from Philly. I'm like, what does that mean? But he was telling me, he goes, because they want to mess you up. I was like, what do you mean? He goes, they're used to the bad boy type style. And he goes, and you don't dress like some of the white kids that are trying to adopt the black style today. Mm-hmm. What's known as the black style. Why isn't it just the style? Mm-hmm. They like rap music. You associate rap music with black people. Is that because black people are the only ones that have made it really popular, or really, really known artists?
Yeah, I think there's a very fine line between cultural identity and then taking things as something that's racist. Because I'm all for cultural identity. Feeling someone that's from China, and they immigrate to the United States. It seems like it's an injustice to force them out of what culturally is, their roots, or so I think there's a fine line between, and if they're from China and they're in the United States and they want to support China, I don't think it's fair for us to call them racist if it's, as long as it's not like, if you want to support you and you're not downplaying other people, I think that's a good thing. If you're uplifting yourself and you're cutting down other people, then that's when you can make an argument in a case for things to be racist. It's not, racism isn't you being for yourself, it's you being against others. It's thinking like, your race and you're superior to other people are less than you.
I think we're just afraid it's different.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, when America or whatever, when we're all in our little things before cars and all this stuff, when we were so close to our area and everyone kind of was the same, did the same thing, was so close in relation to us, and then someone from New York comes down here and they're talking with an accent or something like that, that's different to us, so they're looked at in a certain way.
Yeah.
We don't feel as comfortable, much like when you live in your house is like the true place you really feel comfortable with, because you're around people that you've grown up with, you've been around your whole life, and it's like you have certain things that are in common, you guys like certain stuff, there's going to be some stuff that's different. And when you experience being multiracial or something like that, you're getting two different cultures. So you're not just experiencing like one thing. When now you're inside, whatever happens in your home might be different from going to a family thing where it might be different in their household. Mm-hmm. But you still have those similarities and characteristics where you don't feel out of place.
Yeah.
When you are, like I'm saying, when we haven't had cars or anything like of this sort, that wasn't new to us, so we couldn't experience people from China coming over here and experiencing this. Like it wasn't different. But then when people started coming over and we became more integrated as a society, more open borders and type of stuff like this, where it's still a problem today, it focuses on, like, we need to look at the world as not being, I mean, in a good way, it's good that we think of it as different, because there's so many beautiful things about being different, about mm-hmm. your individuality and who you are and how you've like grown. But we can't use that term as sensitive as we do to think of race. You understand what I'm saying?
I think so, yeah.
It's just like, I look at you and you look at me. We're different, obviously, but I don't focus on anything else besides that. Like, not saying like I focus like, oh, we're different. Like every time I'm having a conversation with you, I feel
Sure.
different. I'm like, no, I'm talking to Nick. That's who I'm talking to, and it's much like you're saying. You want yourself to express who you are. I think people need to look at that more. Just because there's a black barbecue place down on, I guess I don't know what that road is, but it's like they're open at 8 in the morning. They're smoking barbecue. Oh my God! I remember pulling over there and eating that. It's better than the Smoker's Pit down here, that's known for their barbecue. Sometimes it's those off like places, and they load me up, and that's from their culture. Like, you want some gravy, you want some mashed potatoes, you want all this stuff. I'm like, I don't eat all that. I'll just take the ribs and everything. And it's like, damn, it's like this is what we call a black like dinner or something. Load me up because it's awesome, man. There are certain foods we shouldn't be categorizing as that, man. That's gotta suck. I mean, do you ever feel stigma when you try and pull up into a fast food place and order fried chicken? Do you ever feel like someone, if you're eating with someone, that they would just be like in their head, like think of the joke, it's because you're black?
Probably, yeah. It doesn't really bother me as much. Honestly, if I was going to pull up in a drive-through with someone, it's either going to be one of my two best friends that is black, or like my sisters are the same thing as me. So it's not.
But if you rolled up with me,
it doesn't. I wouldn't even think about it. But at the same time, it could be frustrating. Some things, less about food. Because like at the same time, like there's jokes are jokes, and people make, there's plenty of comedians out there who make jokes about fried chicken and watermelon, and so like some things like that are a whole lot easier to just roll off than some other things if that are more of an attack on who you are characteristically.
So have you noticed that in entertainment with people that are of a certain ethnicity highlighting the fact that they are a certain ethnicity? Do you feel like people get hired for that role because of their ethnicity? I mean, it definitely happens, but
yeah, definitely it sells.
It like if you're directing for a certain part, you're gonna play that. But like, what's the certain part for playing? We need a fat black guy to play this part who's funny, and then you have to search for that guy. It's like, I understand you're looking for a certain thing. Now, is that considered racist, or is that considered how it was written in the story? But you got to think who wrote the story.
Yeah, I wouldn't call stuff like that. I wouldn't really call that a racial injustice. I mean, at the same time, there's also a whole lot of issues with whitewashing things that are Asian. If you've got an Asian movie and you cast a white person to play a part that's really an Asian thing.
People gave Robert Downey Jr. shit for playing blackface in Tropic Thunder.
Yeah.
I did not look at him as... I looked at him as the part he was playing, the black guy. Mm-hmm. I literally didn't even see him as Robert Downey Jr. I literally was like, this guy is like... Because he was so into the character. Which brings up the good point. Someone can break the borders of race or something of this sort when it comes to acting or some type of entertainment if they're really, really good at what they do, at their craft. Mm-hmm. You're not going to judge if there's a white person making shoes and an Asian person making shoes. If the white person makes better shoes, I'm not going to choose the Asian person because they're like, oh, they work for less or some type of stereotype like that. Right. It's not going to happen. If you're, like, it happens in the job industry, a lot of people talk about they don't hire certain people because of a certain ethnicity, which definitely happens out there. But, like, earning money, and, if racism really doesn't exist in a way, mm-hmm. because if you wrote down 30-year-old male, Harvard education, and just wrote down all your business degrees and it's going to make me a ton of money, Gavin McInnes uses this reference, just talking about a bunch of, of benefits that's going to be for my company, and I see that and I hire you. Am I going to not hire you because you walk in the door and you're black? That wouldn't make sense. I'd be losing money at that point. But there's some people that can't see past that. They just see I don't care about money. It's like, I'm going to do whatever's going to be best to promote my business. Mm-hmm. That's my cultural upbringing. That's my environment. But also at the same time, if he uses this reference too, like an Archie Bunker type guy smoking a cigar at a bar and they're watching a football game or something, and the dude goes over and says, "Yeah, that team sucks." You're like, "I do agree." And you look over, are you gonna not strike up this conversation with this person because they are of a certain ethnicity? No. You guys bonded over something. You don't see the difference anymore. You see the similarities. So I think we need to be open more to the fact of similarities being what brings us all together.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely would agree with that. Yeah, feeling like people finding common ground. I mean, that goes with basically, you can apply that to any part of your life. Being able, your relationships are formed based on where you find common ground with other people. Where, if you got the same interests or
Dress
the
a certain
same
way.
dress a certain
Listen
way,
to a certain type of music.
if you dislike the same things, anything where it's a point of similarity. I mean, that's what you want to focus on. That's how you build relationships with people.
And music seems to be the only thing that's really broken down that barrier too, because when you're listening to a song, you don't judge the person's color of their skin because you can't see them, but at the same time, it's like when you're listening to a CD or something, you're judging the music. You're not judging who it is that's singing it. You know, when you listen to Jimi Hendrix, you know that's Jimi Hendrix just because he's been popularized, but you're listening to the craft of the music. You're listening to the true beauty aspect of it. It's like someone put a nice little blindfold on you and just let you feel how the world should be. You know what I mean? That's when they say music comes together in a way. It really does, because it's the only thing that I can think of that can really break the boundaries. Besides, I mean, cooking kind of does it, but at the same time, we have stereotypes on cooking, and we also have stereotypes on songs. But when someone cooks you something, if you didn't if you had a blindfold on and be like, "Who cooked this?" It could be, it just depends on how it's made too, how they were culturally influenced. A lot of people that cook foods, like if you're gonna cook a bowl of shrimp soup, let's take it off of Forrest Gump. That's where my brain went. If you're gonna do shrimp soup, whatever you want, like she was talking about eating gumbo. That was a family style thing.
Right.
And if a white person cooked gumbo or a black person cooked gumbo, they could taste the exact same, but you're gonna immediately think a black person did it. Just because that's how we've been stigmatized. And the same thing with entertainment. Black comedians want to be the first headline if, they want to be the first one up if there's other black comedians on the set. And you know why that is?
They want to be, probably, I don't know. I could guess, but I don't know. What do you
guess?
What is it? They want to be, they want to outdo their competition, but also be seen as, they're the better. I guess you could say they're the better ones. Like, they got something to show.
They're trying to hit the black jokes first.
Yeah.
Because that's, if you ever watch a comedy special, whether it's something, half of the, D.L. Huey, all those guys, Gabriel Iglesias, all those people, they use their ethnicity to their benefit. What should we talk about where celebrities use it to their benefit? They use, in comedy, they're that act, They call him, Gabriel Iglesias, the fluffy Mexican. They call, you look at Lavelle Crawford. I don't know if you know who he is, but he's a giant black guy. That's his joke. He uses his weight and his ethnicity in his act. He talks about growing up and his what we call a black childhood. A lot of comedians use that to their benefit. Yes, that's a good way, but it's even with the guy who played in Hangover, the Asian guy. See, I have to stereotypical that because no one knows his name.
Yeah.
Now he has the stereotypical Asian thing where it was he was born, pretty smart. For a lot of people don't know, but at the age of 16 he went to college and got his doctorate degree and everything like that. But in his comedy special, he highlights the fact that every Asian person, their last name's Wong or something. Everyone's always we laugh at race, but then we get so serious when it comes to other things on it. It's should racism in jokes not be a thing? Should it not be stigmatized, or is it good that we just obliterate the fact that it's obvious, hey, it's here, we can't ignore it. You look at me, I look at you, we're different.
Yeah, I'd say it's more about embracing it, and and rather than trying to, because I think it's a reality. I don't really think it's going anywhere. Some things are easier to you want to embrace it, accept it, and put it towards something positive. Sometimes changing things are a lot more. Some things need to be changed, definitely, and then some things are I feel like there's things that you embrace and you make it something positive. Because I mean, there's a difference between things that are cultural and things that are you want to peg it as more like being race, just like the color of your skin meaning something specific. But there's plenty of people that they may have been born Asian, but they could have grown up in African American culture. So like if you're going to ask them culturally, what do they identify with? They may not have grown up in an Asian household, so that's not necessarily what they would identify with. So I know I feel like cultural identity. I think it's just something that you gotta accept it, notice it for what it is, and note and celebrate the differences.
But don't focus 100% on it the whole time. Like
Yeah.
when a comedian's whole
Well, yeah,
stand-up
definitely.
thing is, or a whole movie is, if it's not written that way, but in like a comedy act, if they just focus on being the black comic or being known as that, it's like, is that what you want to be known as to other people, as only black people can come see your shows? Like, Kevin Hart appeals to all audiences. And then you got someone like, I'm trying to think of a black comedian, like D.L. Huey. Half of his jokes are stuff that only a person that grew up in a black household is going to understand. So when they show the audience, it's all mostly black people.
Yeah.
Now, I feel like if you focus too much on the fact of just of race, if you make that your whole entire bit, are you really performing and actually taking your talents in the craft? Yes, it gets the joke, and yes, you get paid, but it's like, don't you want to be open to all views of audiences? Only reason I like them so much is because I can relate to having a black childhood, because I'm like Lavelle Crawford said, I'm used to going into the store and my mom gives me that briefing before we go in, before we start picking up stuff off the shelves. His whole comedy special was stuff I can relate to.
Yeah.
Get like, nobody's home when you get off the bus, you get in the house and you lock it like Fort Knox, and then you don't open up the door for anybody, and I mean anybody. I did that.
Yeah.
I remember getting home off the bus. My mom would give me that briefing, before I got onto the bus, saying, but get in that house, you don't open up the door for anybody until I get home at this certain time. I'm like, okay. Ran in, locked the door, sit in front of the TV with whatever I was ready to eat, a bag of chips or something, and watch my TV show. And it was like, someone would knock on the door, like he cracked the joke, it's your grandmama, let your grandmama in. I took 3 buses to come down here. And then he's like, sorry, grandma, I can't open up the door till 4:30. I relate to that. Like, I can understand that. Like,
Yeah.
It's the same thing. We put so much stigma, and we look at the differences. It's just, we can't get past it. But, there's certain things. If we just look at the similarities, his whole special, I was sitting there laughing and dying, because it's stuff I can relate to. That's all we need, is being able to be relatable. Much like you're saying, when we feel like we're equal, we will truly be equal. And it might not come in a day where society will get to that. I like to think we progress enough farther forward to look past that. But for a lot of people, when they're raised a certain way, like if I gave a white kid a book and it was educating them all races are equal and all this stuff, and then I give another one about hate, they're going to have two different, like, basically adulthoods. One's going to be a pissed off white supremacist probably, and the other one's going to be a pissed off, or not pissed off, more pissed off with the white supremacist. He's going to be anti all that, and pro, like, black culture and all these other cultures and stuff. He's going to be more open and acceptable, and it's part of the reason why it's hard even walking around today, because you're so afraid of stepping on someone's toes or mentioning a certain thing without them feeling like they're going to get sensitized in a way, or feel like they were hurt.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of sensitivity floating around, feeling like and that's something that I guess I was I'm not sure how to say it. My dad has gone through it too. He explained it to me, but it's the hardships that kind of make you who you are. So like if you don't get, you go through a point when you're sensitive, and if you don't come out on the other side of that stronger, it's like that's kind of what makes you strong. When you're going through something that's maybe a sensitive time, and things like jokes and things like that, or bullies, you want to come out on the other side, or you want to take that and make that who you are. You know, make it stronger. And I guess
Power to persevere.
yeah, and I guess there's probably a lot of people that haven't gone through that or haven't really come on the other side, or maybe not, they're missing something, or
What I would say would be the struggle.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you want to come out on the other side of the struggle. I have a good sense of identity of who I am. It would take a lot for someone to
Take away your individual.
yeah, have to make me feel like I'm something I'm not, or but that's just, I'm just a product of my environment. You know, I think some people have a stronger sense of identity from their culture. Some people, less.
They just feel lost in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, this was a very, very, very kind of stigma subject in a way, just because, when it comes to race or religion or politics, it's like everyone's got their own opinions and views on it, and everyone's got something to say. And I feel like we covered it a little bit well, just dealing with multiculturalism and just what it feels like to be different but the same. In a way. And I appreciate you, Nick, coming down here and taking the time to be on this podcast series spinoff. And
no
you
problem.
haven't opened up your cream soda, dude. It is a tradition on the podcast. People drink the cream soda.
There it is.
Now you're gonna like it. You went for the water, but I'm telling you, cream soda is the way to go.
Yeah. Actually, cream soda is my favorite soda, I think.
Bam! And I kept you talking that whole time, so you couldn't actually enjoy it.
That's right. I can enjoy it after.
Well, thanks everybody for listening to this episode of Fill in the Blank, and hopefully we didn't really shoot out too much facts, but more like our knowledge on what it means to be like, and personal experience.
Yeah, personal experience, which is it's basically all you got in life is your personal experience.
That and Trump's random quotes of building a wall that's never going to happen because nobody is going to even sign up for that. It's a ridiculous notion. All right, not to end on Trump, but thanks again, Nick, for being on the podcast, and we'll get you on another episode of Out of the Blank soon.
Yeah, anytime.